The scratching at the back door woke Laura from half-sleep. Rain beat against the windows, steady and cold, and the motion sensor light flicked on outside. "Millie?" she called. Her tabby cat slipped through the pet door, dripping wet, and dragging something small behind her. Laura sat up. What on earth? The little bundle squirmed weakly on the floor. Millie let go, then began licking its soaked fur with brisk, practiced strokes. It wasn't a mouse, or a kitten. Laura's breath caught. The ears were tufted, the paws too large, the markings wild. A bobcat kit, thin, trembling, barely alive. Millie crouched protectively over it, eyes fixed on Laura. "Millie, no," Laura whispered, stepping closer. "That's not a baby cat." But Millie only wrapped her body around the kit and purred. Deep and steady, a sound that filled the kitchen like warmth. And somehow, the little wild thing began to breathe easier. Laura crouched beside them, unsure what to do. She'd volunteered at animal rescues before. She knew wild meant dangerous, even when small. The kit's ribs showed with every breath. Mud clung to its paws, and a faint cut marked one ear. It couldn't have been more than a few weeks old. Millie ignored Laura completely. She licked the kit's face clean, nudged it closer to her belly, and gave a low trill, the same sound she'd once made to call her own litter. The kit responded with a squeak, pressing against her fur. Laura exhaled slowly. "Okay," she murmured. "You win." She fetched towels, a bowl of water, and Millie's food dish. The bobcat sniffed at the kibble, then copied Millie, chewing clumsily, dropping crumbs everywhere. Thunder rumbled outside, shaking the window panes. Inside, the kitchen glowed in soft lamplight. A house cat and a wild one, huddled together as the storm raged. The first few nights were chaos. The bobcat, now named Bobby, half as a joke, woke often, crying out with sharp, throaty mews that echoed through the house. Each time, Millie answered instantly, curling around him until the sound softened into silence. Laura barely slept. She moved between the kitchen and the living room with bottles of warm milk and towels, watching as the rain hammered the windows. She called wildlife services, but the lines were still down from the storm. By the time anyone called back, Bobby had already claimed his place, asleep against Millie's belly, her paw draped protectively over his back. He learned quickly. He followed her everywhere, to the litter box, to the window perch, even to Laura's lap during breakfast. His movements were unsteady but determined, like a wild thing trying to fit into a world too soft for him. Millie corrected him the way mothers do. When Bobby bit too hard, she batted his ear with a paw, gentle, precise. When he knocked over the water bowl, she hissed once and moved to show him how to drink without spilling. Laura kept a broom nearby at first, expecting chaos or claws. But instead, she watched peace grow where instinct should have clashed. Days blurred into weeks. Bobby's fur thickened. His legs stretched longer each morning. The faint spots on his coat darkened into bold rosettes that caught the light when he moved. His paws were already the size of Millie's head, yet he still slept curled at her side, purring softly in rhythm with her own. Sometimes Laura would find them sitting together by the window, two shapes outlined in the gray rain light, tails flicking in slow mirrored motion as they watched the forest sway beyond the glass. And though it looked serene, Laura knew it couldn't last. Bobby was beginning to change. He leapt higher, stared longer at shadows, and sometimes pressed his nose to the window pane as if listening to something outside that she couldn't hear. When the call finally came from the sanctuary, Laura stared at the phone for a long moment before answering. "Yes," she said softly. "He's ready." That night she sat on the floor beside them. "They'll take good care of him," she whispered. Millie blinked slowly, as if she already knew. The morning they arrived, Millie refused to leave the kit's side. Bobby paced restlessly, sensing the change in the air. When the carrier door opened, he crouched low, eyes wide. "It's okay," Laura whispered, holding out a treat. Millie stepped forward first, rubbing her head against Bobby's flank. The tension in the room softened. The kit sniffed her once more, then allowed the rescuer to lift him into the crate. As the latch clicked shut, Millie let out a low, steady meow, a sound halfway between goodbye and comfort. Laura carried the crate to the porch. Rain had stopped, the air fresh and sharp. The rescue truck rumbled to life, tires crushing gravel as it rolled down the long drive. When it disappeared around the bend, Millie jumped onto the windowsill, tail twitching. She stayed there all afternoon, staring at the empty road. Days passed. Then weeks. Millie ate, slept, purred in her usual spots. But every evening she'd return to that same window, eyes searching the horizon. Laura tried to tell herself it was a habit. But she noticed the difference in the purr. Slower, quieter, like a memory being replayed. 3 months later, the sanctuary invited Laura to visit. She carried Millie to the jeep and lifted her into the cab. The enclosure stretched wide under an open sky. When the keeper led them to a shaded pen, Laura froze. A full-grown bobcat lounged on a rock, coat shining, eyes bright amber. "That's him," the keeper said. "Bobby. He's thriving." Laura laughed through tears. "He's huge." Millie pressed her nose to the wire. For a moment, the bobcat froze, then stood, stepping forward until only the mesh separated them. He pressed his head gently against the fence. Millie mirrored him, purring low. The sound carried across the space between them, small and steady, like a heartbeat shared across distance. That evening back home, Laura left the porch light on. Teehee House felt quieter now, but not lonely. Millie jumped onto the couch, curling up where Bobby used to sleep. Laura stroked her fur and thought of the wild cat pacing his new world, learning to hunt, to live free. Sometimes she wondered if he remembered the softness of blankets, the hum of the fridge, the warmth of Millie's body beside his. Maybe memory in animals worked differently, not in words, but in feelings that never faded. A few weeks later, a letter arrived from the sanctuary. A photo slipped out, Bobby mid-stride, tail high, eyes alert. On the back, the keeper had written, "He's doing beautifully. Still purrs when he sees house cats through the fence." Laura smiled. She turned to Millie. "He still remembers you, sweetheart." Millie blinked slowly, then looked toward the window. The rain started again, soft and rhythmic. Laura followed her gaze. For a heartbeat, she imagined a shape beyond the glass, amber eyes watching through the dark, calm and familiar. She didn't move. She just whispered, "Welcome home." Every rainstorm after that, Millie sat by the window, tail wrapped neatly around her paws. Sometimes, when thunder rolled, she'd lift her head, ears twitching, eyes bright, and begin to purr low and steady. Laura liked to think she was answering something far away, another heartbeat under the same storm, another soul remembering warmth and light. Outside, the rain fell over forest and field alike, washing away the distance between wild and home. And somewhere, beneath that same gray sky, a bobcat paused in the trees, listening. Because some bonds never fade. They just grow quiet,